أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإن الله تعالى مع المتقين وبعد. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, كم من صائم ليس له من صومه إلا الجوع والعطش أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, how many a fasting person has nothing from his fast except for thirst and hunger, i.e. the person is abstaining from food and from drink and from relations with his spouse, her spouse, etc. But they have no reward. Why? Because they are engaging in that which they should not be engaging in while in a state of fasting. And if we look at the verse which has been repeated over the last few Fridays, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you just as it was prescribed for those who came before you, so that you can acquire taqwa. We understand the purpose behind fasting is not simply to go hungry and thirsty, but the purpose behind fasting is to acquire taqwa. And to acquire taqwa is to acquire a framework of application in your life which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that should be our goal. And so we have to focus in this month on habit building. Building habits of the righteous. Relationship with the Quran, relationship with the prayer, relationship with the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, if a person comes to you whilst fasting and tries to argue, etc., you say, Inni sa'im, I am fasting. Why? Because we want to develop a good relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our tongues. We want to become righteous with our tongues just as we are trying to be righteous with our salah and so on and so forth. And some of the ulama, they go into detail about that which we should avoid whilst we are fasting. And they say that we should avoid looking at that which is haram. We should avoid listening to that which is haram. We should avoid saying that which is haram. And we should avoid taking our places or taking ourselves, to places that are haram. Using our limbs for that which is haram, our hands, our legs. And so we want to focus on staying away from the haram, implementation of the ta'at, the acts of worship, and through doing so, we acquire taqwa. And in order to understand the haram that I have to avoid, I have to understand myself, and I have to introspect. And Ramadan is a perfect time. Why? Because we are taken away from the distraction of food and drink. We are taken away from the distraction of shaitan. And we are given a time wherein we can focus on ourselves with ourselves. And so I can identify the areas of weakness that I have, the areas of weakness that come from myself. If I still find myself heavily desiring something haram in Ramadan, while shaitan is locked up, it's a good indicator that that desire is coming from within me. It's not an external whisper, it's an internal voice, which shows I have to work on myself. And in staying away from looking at haram, and listening to haram, and saying that which is haram, we have to think deeply about our relationship with our phones, social media, perhaps our laptops, etc., but the internet in general. As it's very easy to fall into looking at haram on a social media platform. It's very easy to fall into typing haram on a social media platform. Likewise, we have to avoid backbiting. And some of the ulama, they mentioned that this hadith, كَم مِّن صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِن صَوْمِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشِ, this hadith is in relation to the one who breaks his fast with ghibah, backbiting. They say the person is abstaining from food and drink, yet they are consuming the flesh of their brothers and sisters. As that's what we do when we backbite. When we speak about others, it's as if we are consuming their flesh. And so we have to be conscious of how we speak about others, what we say about others. And we have to make sure that we do not fall into gossiping. He said, she said. We have to avoid sinning with our tongues, with our eyes, with our ears, just as we avoid eating and drinking. And we have to be on high alert, just as we are on high alert when it comes to eating and drinking. When we perform wudu whilst we are fasting, for example, we are quite cautious to make sure that we do not accidentally swallow any water. Likewise, we should have the same approach with sin. When I am browsing the internet, I need to be careful. I need to ask myself, is this potential website, platform, social media, app, etc., is it going to take me into haram? Is there a possibility that it takes me towards haram? If so, I need to put it to the side. Why? Because I do not want to end this month and it was all for nothing. Alhamdulillah, we've made it into the month. We've made it into the month. We have the opportunity now to make dua, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek His forgiveness and to become better people. And we do not want to waste that opportunity by falling into sin that could easily be avoided. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده وصلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. I want to avoid sin and I want to increase in ta'at. And we have 30 days to do so. 29 to 28 days left. And so I need to think long term, not short term. As we find the masajid are full, walillahi alhamd, in the beginning of the month and in the end of the month. But sometimes the numbers start to dissipate towards the middle of the month. Sometimes the numbers decrease and we become bored. Maybe we become desensitized to the fact that we're in Ramadan and we start to slow down. So rather than go full speed ahead in the beginning and try to pick it back up at the end, let's think long term. How can I build slowly but surely from the beginning so that at the end I have actions and habits that I can continue outside of the month of Ramadan? I don't just want to complete the Quran in Ramadan alone and then put the Quran back on the shelf and resume next year. I want to develop a working relationship with the Quran where I am reading it in the month of Ramadan, yes, but I carry that habit outside of the month of Ramadan with me. How can I do that? Find times in my day where I can say to myself, this time I can dedicate to the Quran when the month of Ramadan has completed as well. My acts of worship, find the weaknesses. If I'm not praying Fajr, start with Fajr. It's not to belittle Taraweeh, etc. But Fajr should be more of a concern to me than Taraweeh if I'm not praying Fajr. If I'm not praying my Sunnah prayers, I want to pick up that habit. And so perhaps I say to myself, for the first week of Ramadan, I'm going to pray half of my Sunnah prayers. The second week of Ramadan, I'm going to add the rest. The third week of Ramadan, I become used to it. Fourth week, it becomes a staple habit in my life. After Ramadan, I continue it for the rest of my life, bi'idhnillah. Sadaqah. How can I develop a working relationship with Sadaqah? Ramadan is a month that gives us the opportunity to rebuild ourselves. It's not supposed to be a month wherein we exert ourselves and then we completely stop when the month finishes. No, it's like a fueling station. You fuel your car so that you can continue your journey, and the next fueling station will come further down the line, etc. That's what this month is. So how can we refuel? How can we top up so that we can continue our journey, i.e. continue the acts of worship that we start in this month outside of the month of Ramadan? In brief, how can I be a consistent person, not a Ramadan person, a Ramadan Muslim, as has commonly been said? And just to conclude, as was mentioned 2 weeks ago, this may be the last Ramadan that we see. This may be the last Ramadan that we see. And so we should take advantage whilst the month is here. And walillahi alhamd, every day is a new day, a new opportunity. Perhaps yesterday I didn't do so well, today I have the opportunity to make it better. If toward the end of today I feel like I didn't do as well as I could have, tomorrow I have the opportunity to increase and to become better. We don't know how many Ramadans we have left. We don't know how many more days of Ramadan we have left as individuals. And so we want to utilize that which we have in front of us take advantage. Open the Quran, pray, make dua, engage in dhikr, turn away from the distractions, the dunya, in preparation for the reality, our meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us success in this month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those that utilize this month to gain His closeness and His pleasure. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن عثمان وعن علي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا وتقبل منا صيامنا وقيامنا وجعلنا من المقبولين لديك يا رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة. No.